Well, why aren't we seeing the slideshow here? Okay. Now we're talking about the Unit 12 grammar presentation on pages 199 to 200, and I've posted some extra slides in here that are not in the book, and I've also posted some other files from other classes where we've talked about adjective clauses in advanced grammar. And I'm going to do this instead of having you worry about the grammar notes on pages 200 to 202, which I think are long and complicated and kind of confusing. And I think if you study all the materials I've posted here, you're going to be much less confused. Okay, an adjective clause goes after the noun it modifies. I met a woman who teaches psychology. This modifies woman. I've read everything that discusses her work, and this modifies everything. A way to think about adjective clauses is that what you're doing is embedding or burying one sentence inside another. And as we go on studying adjective clauses, I think you're going to find it's easier to think in these terms because a lot of the problems and difficulties with adjective clauses have to do with characteristics of the embedded sentence, and we'll get to that later in this slideshow. Okay, but this is a very simple example of I met a woman, the woman teaches psychology, so I'm embedding this into this, and I get that. Same example here, I've read everything as a main sentence. I've got this embedded sentence, everything discusses her work. This goes into this, then I get that. Okay, now when I'm embedding a sentence about a person, I use who or I can use that. I have a friend who loves to talk. I have friends who love to talk. And who and that are interchangeable in this situation. Doesn't matter which ones you use. So you can say, I have a friend who loves to talk. I have a friend that loves to talk. And here's the main sentence, I have a friend. The embedded sentence is the friend loves to talk. It's a person, so I'm going to use who, or instead of who, I can use that. And those are the possible sentences with adjective clauses. Here's the same thing in the plural. I have friends who love to talk. I have friends that love to talk. Those sentences are both the same. And I'm embedding this sentence into this sentence. Okay, if I use which or that, it's because I'm embedding a sentence about a thing. This is a book which is useful. These are books that are useful. And in these kinds of sentences, the which and the that are interchangeable. It doesn't matter which one I use. In another kind of adjective clause, there is a rule about, and it makes a difference. But in this kind of adjective clause, no. Which and that are the same. Okay, here are examples of the full sentence. Okay, and now I have not changed it to the plural, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to stop the recording. Oh, this is what I want. Okay, these are books. The books are useful. I'm embedding this one into this one, so I get one of those sentences with which or with that. Okay, now this is how I use whom as a relative pronoun, and in sentences with whom I can generally also use that, or I can leave it out and not use a pronoun at all. So I can use this is the doctor whom we consulted, or this is the doctor who we consulted. This is less formal. Whom is more formal. This is the doctor we consulted is also correct because we are leaving out the relative pronoun here, and that's okay. The main sentence is this is the doctor. The embedded sentence is we consulted the doctor. Now, a rule about leaving out the relative pronoun completely. This is the rule that you can omit the relative pronoun if it replaces the object of the embedded sentence. So here is the embedded sentence. We consulted the doctor. This is the object of consulted. And when I make the sentence, I'm using whom for the doctor. And the embedded sentence has doctor as the object. So in that situation, it is okay to take out the relative pronoun and not use it at all. Now, it may not be necessary to learn this complicated rule. Probably you speak English enough so that you hear this all the time. You hear that people often leave out the relative pronoun. Okay, this is the same kind of thing when we're talking about a thing. No, I have to change this and say this is a thing. Okay, let me go back and fix this now. You get to watch me proofread while I do this. Okay, so I'm going to go from the current slide here and start again. Okay, so here I'm embedding a sentence about a thing, and I can use pronouns which or that or zero, no pronoun. So here are the possible correct sentences. This is the sentence which he gave us. This is the sentence that he gave us. This is the sentence he gave us. All of those are correct. And this is my main sentence. I'm embedding this sentence into that one. And here again, the rule is I'm omitting the relative pronoun if it replaces the object of the embedded sentence. That's why I don't have to use the relative pronoun at all if I don't want to. Okay, whose is a difficult problem for some people. Here are two examples. She is the woman whose son is so famous. She is the woman whose son I'm tutoring. And what's going, okay, here's another thing with things. It's the book whose reviews were so good. It's the books whose reviews I've just read. This is what confuses a lot of people with whose, is that when I use whose as a relative pronoun, I can use it for a thing and not just a person. This makes a lot more sense to most people where I'm using it with a person, but also when it's a relative pronoun, we also use it with a thing. Okay, and I'm using whose because there is a possessive in the embedded sentence. That's what makes me use whose. So this is the woman. The woman's son is famous. This is what we call a possessive. The woman's son, her son, okay? And I'm embedding this sentence with a possessive into this sentence, and that makes a sentence with whose beginning the adjective clause. Okay, where and when in adjective clauses also have to do with characteristics of the embedded sentence. So when I talk about place, remember the cafe where we met. Okay, here's the main sentence. We met at the cafe. Remember the cafe. And we met at the cafe. And I'm embedding this into this. Okay. And this embedded sentence has a preposition of place. And that's why I can use where as the relative pronoun. Something very similar happens with time. I remember the day when we parted, or that we parted, or I remember the day we parted. Okay. Here, the embedded sentence contains a preposition of time. We parted on that day. I remember the day we parted on that day. The embedded sentence has a preposition of time, and that's why I end up with when as a relative pronoun. Now, when can also be replaced with that. Where we don't replace with that, but when we do. All right, now this is beginning to talk about identifying or non-identifying clauses. And this is a problem a lot of people have. There's a whole other file posted for you to look at about this. But if you've studied grammar before, you may have also heard these called restrictive or non-restrictive clauses. There are a couple of different words that people use for this. Your book calls them identifying or non-identifying clauses. The non-identifying clause has commas. The identifying clause does not. So these are identifying clauses with no commas. The woman who created the test studied psychology. Okay, or the woman that created the test is also correct. The test which she created describes personality types. The test that she created describes personality types. The test she created describes personality types. All ways to say the same thing. It's an identifying clause and there are no commas. Now these are examples of identifying clause. Excuse me, I always say it wrong myself. Okay, these are examples of non-identifying clauses that do have commas. Okay, Myers, comma, who created the test, comma, was a Jungian psychologist. The Myers-Briggs test, comma, which she and her daughter created, comma, describes personality types. And these are examples of non-identifying clauses that have commas, and we'll be talking more about that later.